slide. When people fear, we got to talk about fear, because fear is the most potent weapon of propaganda in the world. Gaddafi's dead now, okay? Do you know how much fear that put in Arab leaders now? Yeah, all of them going to get in line now. Do you know how much fear that put in black leaders? Not that you really had any anyway. See, we don't have any black leaders. We got black spokespersons. I want to be clear. We have people who speak about your condition and who speak to you about your condition. For there to be a leader, there must be a plan that has been clearly communicated to the followers that's being worked on. There's no black man or woman in America who has a plan that is objectified, which means it has detail that goes beyond pure rhetoric to move us from where we are to where we need to be. You don't have a black leader. When people are afraid, they willingly give up their rights. You're doing it in your neighborhood. How many black people you see running around Baltimore talking about something? I'm tired of these thugs out here selling drugs and killing each other. As far as I'm concerned, the police can come and sleep in my basement if they want to. You see that? They love to hear that, because when people feel like they are imprisoned in their own community, they willingly let the government do what they want. The government has always been able to induce compliance by making you afraid to come outside. So you become an accomplice to the extermination of black males. Psychological terrorism is the most potent weapon used to induce compliance amongst a non-compliant people. 911 was a perfect example. You know damn well that no Arabs bombed that building. That's right. That was done by the United States military, the Rockefellers and the Bilderbergs on purpose. They knew that they would bomb 911 2 years before it happened. 2 years before it happened, in order to do what? Invade Afghanistan. Why Afghanistan? Because Afghanistan is the #1 opium and poppy producing region on the face of the earth. More than 75% of the poppy seed in the world comes from the Afghanistan. So when the Taliban burned down the poppy field, they sent Colin Powell over there. This was an Associated Press. This was an Associated Press. Colin Powell gave the government of Afghanistan $50 million to replant poppy seed. Why would the Secretary of State give an enemy government $50 million to replant drugs? Because without illegal drug money, the American economy would crash tomorrow. One of the reasons why the economy is in shambles now is because of the war against terrorism. Is really a war for drugs, and because the Arabs have cut the drug pipeline, the stock market is shaking. Let me break this down to you a little bit more simpler. You don't need to buy a car every day. You don't need a pocketbook every day. You don't need a television, a radio, a laptop, or an iPhone every day. So because the things you need, you don't need to buy them every day, Wall Street automatically starts what? Gyrating. Because what? The sales are not constant. So in order for the stock to be supplemented, they must supplement it with what? Something that can be sold relatively cheaply, that people will buy all day, every day. There's only one thing on earth, and you know what that is: drugs. Without drugs, there would be no American economy. You cannot fight the war on drugs unless you fight what? The CIA and President Obama himself. Libya, Somalia, the myth of the violent, sex-crazed black male, population control. They telling you that if we don't stop having babies, it won't be enough food to feed people on earth. That's the biggest propaganda lie being told. Do you know that there's enough food being grown on the planet to make every human alive obese? So you say, well, when I look at Africa, Brother Umar, why they starving? Because what they doing with the NGO, the genetically modified organism, white man seed, is they planting the white man seed in Africa, and it's eroding the soil. So you can't grow again on that piece of land that you put the GMO seed in. And because you can't grow on it again, black people are going hungry. They're using food as a weapon. They're using food as a weapon all across the world. Food in fear. Next slide. Hitler. Let's talk about Hitler. Hitler was a master propagator. I'm not going over Hitler because I'm a supporter of him. Not only did he kill 6 million Jews, but he killed what? More than 50,000 Africans who were living in Germany at the same time. And it bothers me when I hear European Jews talk about the Holocaust and they don't say a damn thing about them black people who were also burned, cooked, cut, and castrated. You don't never see Africa. But would you know that it was Africans in World War II, they was called the Great Liberators, who were responsible, black soldiers, who were the most responsible for freeing European Jews from the most atrocious of the internment camps. In fact, to this day, is a celebration to celebrate the black liberators of the Jews. But I'm giving you him because what? His propaganda master, Goebbels, okay, basically pioneered in the field of mind control. Look at what they had to say. Education is dangerous. Every educated person is a future enemy. You hear that? So the government's job is to do what through the school system? To condition. Not to teach our children how to think, but to teach them what to think. What are the 3 goals of public education? First one is to do what? Induce social compliance. The second one is what? To choose the next generation of leaders. And the third one for black children is what? Prepare the boys for prison and our little girls for poverty. Next slide. Adolf Hitler said, through clever and constant application of propaganda, people can be made to see paradise as hell, and also the other way around, to consider the most wretched sort of life as paradise. Hitler is telling you that through music, through movies, through groupthink, you can make the people believe that what is true ain't true, and that what ain't true is true. Like black folk, we have a core belief that we're doing a lot better now than we were doing in 1960. That's propaganda. Where is the proof of that? That's right. Where is the proof of that? When we got out of slavery, when the 13th Amendment was passed in December of 1865, we owned 1/2 of 1% of all the wealth in America. Here we are 144 years later, and you still only own with Oprah, with Bill, with the NBA, with the NFL. 144 years later, 144,000 athletes later, and you still only own 1/2 of 1% of all the wealth in this country. See, when we nationalists say we got to do for self, the first thing an integrationist says, well, look, we got to work within the system. Okay, integrationists, then I challenge you. Put forth a fight for what? The redistribution of wealth in America. Because until you redistribute wealth, you ain't talking equality. Our problem is all we care about is what? Social equality. Can I go to school with them? Can I live in the suburbs with them? Can I go to the movies with them? I don't give a damn about that. Where's the economic equality? Now, if you want to take all the wealth and give everybody equal measure and we start from there, then so be it. But you got to realize, black people, you are starting from 1865 to the present, which means that the European and most other immigrants have been given a what? 250-year head start on you. And you're supposed to catch up with that, knowing that no bank is going to give you the loan necessary for you to be able to compete with a European bank. Look at how they set this up. They start you behind. And then when you say, okay, I can catch up to Walmart, let me get a $2 million loan, I'll come up with a black mark. But guess what? The bank ain't going to give you that. And as long as black people do not have what? The wealth necessary to compete with European businesses, we won't be able to do it unless we do what? Pull our money together. What's wrong with pulling our money together? Black people don't trust other black people. You will give your money to anybody else but another black folk. You give it to the Chinese store every night. Half y'all, when you leave here, you're going to get a small gizzard, fried rice, and a 20-cent on soda, 2 Lucy's and a blunt. And if you 5 pennies short, you will not get your food. They will hold that food and say you owe 2 pennies. Next slide. And they cook it in the same grease that your grandma's chicken wings was cooked in. Hitler said, it also gives us a very special secret pleasure to see how unaware, listen to this man now, how he almost controlled the world, how unaware the people around us are of what is really happening to them. You see that? Propaganda works on your what? Ignorance. Your conscious ignorance of what's going on. Next slide. Listen to this, y'all. This is how the government works. Make the lie big. Make it simple. Keep saying it, and eventually they'll believe it. I got to say this again. This is coming from Adolf Hitler. He said, make the lie big. Make it simple. Keep saying it, and eventually they will believe it. Repetition is the weapon. That's why we have to build independent African residential schools for our children. We cannot, even with a black school, we're going to lose if we bring them to school for 8 hours and then send them home for the other, what? 12 hours of the day. How many left in 24? Where the parents are indoctrinating them. When the TV, look at what the military does when you go to military school. You see what they do? When you join the Marine Corps for 3 months, you can't call nobody. That's right. It is all U.S. Marine Corps the whole time because they're doing what? getting that mind right for how they want it to be. We got to get the mind right for how we want it to be. Until we get our children to build our own schools, how do you send your children to the enemy to be educated and expect them to come back and work for your best interests? Next slide.